My name is Jiles Smith, and welcome to our community. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on our community.
Thank you for having me.
First thing I want to ask you, I saw some great pictures on your wall, Lincoln and
Yeah,
the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
absolutely. Well, you know, that's the foundation of our country, the Constitution, the Declaration. And Lincoln is, you know, I know a lot of folks' role model. He is mine, my inspiration, some of my toughest moments, decisions I have to make, whether it's the DA's office or anything to do with the community and people and their lives. I look at Lincoln for that inspiration, and especially in the area of human trafficking, which I call the modern slavery. I know we'll talk a little bit about that, but Lincoln is, I think, one of the greatest presidents in the history of this country.
Right. He's in my top 5 as well.
Well,
Actually, he's
good.
number 2.
Yeah,
Theodore Roosevelt's my number 1.
there you go.
Let's talk about, again, 2 important issues. You talked about one of them, human trafficking.
Sure.
Let's dig into that for a second.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it because it's still kind of a newer department that I created in my office. We now have a human trafficking prosecutor, vertical prosecution unit. And it started a little over 3 years ago. And I was reading an article in the newspaper by a reporter that wrote commentary, Wes Hughes, for the Sun newspaper. And, you know, he challenged somebody to step up and help some of these girls that are being trafficked. And I had a chief deputy back then, Karen Bell, who's since retired, and another lawyer in my West End division that were talking to me about that as well. So it kind of opened my eyes. I made the calls, and, you know, I called my good friend Kamala Harris, who at the time was the DA in San Francisco. She's now our Attorney General, California Attorney General, of course, and she told me that this is a big problem across, not only across our state, but across the country, and we as DAs need to step up. We are now in the city of San Francisco, and I'm about to go see my good friend, the California State Attorney General, Kamala Harris. She's an important part of this fight against human trafficking and what we're doing in San Bernardino County. Now we have a state partner.
Based on the activity we're seeing on the streets of California, this is a pure law enforcement issue. We are talking about cartels, we're talking about street-level gangs that have figured out that they can traffic in girls and women in particular and make huge amounts of money. So why should people care? Well, if they care about public safety, they should care about human trafficking.
Everything that's being done to them is associated with love. They've been manipulated, brainwashed into this is what love looks like. And if you ask anybody that works in this field, separating love and abuse is probably the hardest thing to do.
Is there a reason why she would refer to you as her pimp? Sit still. Keep your legs out.
Oh my God, no, ma'am, I am not her pimp.
And now it's going after our children, our most vulnerable victims. From as early as 4 years old, I've heard, average of 12, 13, and 4-year-old victims. So we need to send a message to these traffickers, these pimps that they like to call themselves.
Freedom! When do we want it?
Now! We're raising awareness about human trafficking and the problem in the county of San Bernardino.
When do we want freedom? When do we want it? Now! When do we want freedom? When do we want it? Now!
And we did, and I made some calls. We put together a group. The first thing that came out of that was CASE, Coalition Against Sexual Exploitation, as partners from different departments throughout the county, and they do an excellent job really helping the young girls that are being trafficked. Of course, created the suppression unit so we could do a better job of holding these human traffickers responsible and training law enforcement officers, etc. Then did something to stop the demand. You know, we have the Stop the John project, where if you are convicted in my county of solicitation of prostitution, we will put your picture and birth date on our webpage because we want to deter this from happening in the future. And then the final piece that we're working on now is a San Bernardino County Human Trafficking Task Force that's going to be administered and driven by the Sheriff's Department. So another great partnership with Sheriff John McMahon and their commitment to that. So we're taking some big steps. We also know that the gangs are getting involved in human trafficking, so we're training our gang prosecutors as well. But we want to make sure that we are ready to take care of this horrendous problem. If you think about it, these young girls have been victims all their lives, a lot of them, even victims when they were younger. And as I indicated before when we were talking about President Lincoln, it's modern slavery, and we're going to put an end to that.
I love your commitment about that subject, and I love that you went to the personal stories because these are individual lives that are being affected.
They are.
And it's the repercussions of that as well with their children, etc.
Absolutely, it creates that vicious cycle. So if we can save these girls, get them back into society, and give them a future. So that's a future, if you think about it, for their children.
Right. Well, I love the passion about that. How has AB 109 affected the department at this point?
AB 109, we're still feeling the impacts. When this was coming down about 2 years ago, I started thinking about the impact, and I thought we're going to see an increase in crime, and we're going to see an increase in probably more property crimes, and I'm hoping not the serious violent crimes that are occurring, but the FBI index is saying we're seeing a little bit of that too, movement going up. And it had concerns for me because of staffing issues with the economy and the terrible economy we had, and I lost a lot of positions. So the AB 109 money that came from the state, I was one of the first district attorneys to say, look, I need a piece of that. I don't need it all. We need more probation officers, I understand, more deputies for the jails, but I need some resources, non-serious, that would have gone to prison before. And then we're coming up with a statewide plan, working with Jackie Lacey. She's the DA from LA County. She has a good outline on recidivism rates. So all 58 counties, we can keep track and use the same model and same numbers when we're tracking recidivism to really see if we're doing a good job with rehabilitation.
And the bottom line is you make it standardized.
Make it standardized so we can work on it. But and then I will say this. Our county, I'm fortunate because we are partners. I work well with the probation department. We're great with the sheriff's department. Probation has some great ideas about rehabilitation and day reporting. And if you take a look at this, you might want to talk to Sheriff McMahon one day. But the programs they have in place for rehabilitation for these folks that we're all being affected by AB 109, this is the kind of programs that are going to work for rehabilitation. Proactive thinking. So I think that's awesome that we have a sheriff's department that thinks like that outside the box.
We just had an event with Sheriff McMahon. I think he's doing an outstanding job.
He is.
We were blessed to have him in the Apple Valley with us.
Yes.
So you're one of those innovators as well. So I'm glad you're working together and moving our county forward. You guys are doing a great job. So that's why I'm asking to speak to you today.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Let's focus on how about your juvenile division? Tell me more about that.
Juvenile division has changed. Years ago, when you had the California Youth Authority, and we saw a big increase about 10 years ago with very violent crimes being committed by younger and younger people, all the way to from 14 years of age up. And the juvenile division kind of changed back then to we were trying serious cases back then and then trying to get them into adult court. There was a law that changed that, and it's called direct filing. Now when you have a very serious crime like that, those individuals, and I'm talking about crimes with guns and murder and rape, they go straight to now adult court, direct file. We can do that. So the whole juvenile division has changed to what I think it should be. For those that haven't crossed the line to serious behavior and conduct that are harming other people, it's more a rehabilitative kind of place now. We talked about human trafficking. We're working on putting together a girls' court, so those girls go to a one judge with not only those that are being trafficked, but runaways and those kinds of issues that we can really try and help them. And you have, we've always had our truancy program out of the Juvenile Division, where I have top lawyers across the county working with the school deserts and the high desert, here locally, East Valley, West End, where they work with educators and the principals and administrators to keep kids in school. Because you and I both know, if we can keep a young person in school, they're going to have a much better chance of being successful in our community. So we'll continue to push that too. So our Juvenile Division, we're running some prevention intervention programs, and that's the key. I mean, one of the things that I've really come to understand, I've been in this work for a long time, probation officer before, a trial lawyer, and then the elected DA for 11 years. We do a great job in suppression. We'll hold people responsible for committing serious crimes. But as important is stopping the crimes in the first place. Prevention, intervention. So that's a lot of our focus now in the Juvenile Division. Just what can we do to help these young people change their lives?
See, our program is just about that as well. We can spend all the time that you want after the fact. That's kind of a waste of money and effort if you focus on before. And we've had some experience with the truancy program you had, and it's outstanding.
Thank you.
But let's talk a little bit more about that, because California spends 10 times as much on corrections and early education.
Right.
It spends about $7.8 billion on corrections to house and feed and supervise criminals.
Right.
Yet a small fraction of that, $784 million, for high quality early education.
Isn't that a shame? And I'm a member of the executive board of an organization called Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. And what a great name if you think about it. Fight crime, invest in our children. And those numbers are actually so unbalanced. I mean, because yes, we have to have prisons. Yes, we have to house prisoners. But we need to really make an effort on putting some funding into helping our children stay in school. And I'm talking about preschool funding. There are so many at-risk preschool children that don't have the opportunity that my children, my grandson had, because coming out of preschool, his social skills, his academic skills were so far ahead. He wasn't behind when he started kindergarten this last year. But you've got a lot of our children out there that are struggling and struggling in their homes. And if you really want to start them off right, it starts in preschool that early. And we went to the governor. In fact, I called the governor. I had him on the phone last week trying to get back the $10 million that they took away from funding preschool. We got some of that back in the budget, but not all of it. So that's where it starts, preschool. Then you have some, the primary levels, elementary school. We need to focus on some of those kids, like our GRIP program for preventing young people to get into gangs. We're starting in the 2nd, 4th, and 5th grade.
You have to start
I've got a gang lawyer, Kerry Epstein, that started that, and he goes into the schools and talks to the kids about decisions you make and how they're going to affect your life in the long run. Again, I'm struggling to find money to support that program, where I wish we had a revenue of income to keep that going. But I'm going to keep fighting for that. And then on the back end, after-school programs are absolutely critical. I used to be on the board of the Boys and Girls Club in Redlands when I was in college. And I remember that, how important it is to keep kids busy from the time they get out of school, that 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, until 5 or 6 when the parents are home. That's crucial, critical. So I think in the long run, if you think about it, if they want to save on prison costs, then they ought to put money over here, because every dollar they're going to put here is going to save them $10 on this end.
Exactly. See, the unintended consequences as well of putting people in prison, how that affects the family. Now the family is, and now it's a generational issue. Now you have a whole cycle that you create, and it's unfortunate.
That's true.
You already talked about your gang unit a little bit, but
yes.
I really want to throw this out. There was a study that talked about gangs, and you said it was one of the high priorities of your office.
Right.
Studies show about 60% of homicides in the county are gang related.
Yeah, when I was trying cases, I saw more and more cases involved gangs, involved crimes committed to enhance the gangs, whether it's their illegal economy of drugs. As I indicated, now they're getting into prostitution and trafficking young girls. And then the numbers I started looking at, your most serious crimes, murder, 60% of it was involved gang members. So in 2005, I was with then Sheriff Gary Penrod, and I said, Sheriff, we need to go to the board, and we need more resources. At that time, for a county this large, the largest in the nation, I think 14th largest in the United States of America as far as personnel, I had 3 deputy DAs, 1 in juvenile, assigned for the entire county to gang prosecution. That was it. Sheriff had some people too. And I said, Gary, we need to double, triple this. And we went to the board, and at the time when the economy was good, they gave us the resources. And I went from 3 lawyers to 15 countywide to investigative support, advocate support, and I had 4 phases. Suppression. We've done a tremendous job since '05. We've put thousands of gang members, your serious criminals in prison for thousands of years. Several, 80, close to, I'm going to guess, 100 life terms, and then some on death row. But more importantly, too, just as important, I should say, is you've got to, we do a better job supporting, assisting our witnesses and our victims. That was another phase. I worked on Kamala Harris then. We wrote legislation when she was the DA in San Francisco. The other phase was gang injunctions. We wanted to give the neighborhoods back to the law-abiding citizens where these gangs were coming in, these territorial gangs coming in and taking over neighborhoods. And we've been successful. And the neighborhoods where we've gone in to do this in our communities, they are very grateful and thankful that we're really giving them their communities back. And then fourth, we've already talked about that, is prevention and intervention. What do we do to keep these kids from getting into and being recruited by gang members? And I think that's a obligation not only by this office, but by the entire community. And I'm talking about not only government, business, our faith-based community. Without faith-based community, that'd be a big hole for us. So I think it's a big challenge, but we're putting a dent in that area.
Fighting a good fight. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about a few more of your departments. The Family Violence Unit. I thought that was very interesting.
When I was elected DA, there was a deputy district attorney who I had a lot of respect for. I really didn't know her. She worked in the division. I worked in Central, and she came up to me with an outline. Her name was Kay Nashad. She is now retired. And she used to try the cases, our most vulnerable victims, our children. And she gave me this outline, and in talking to her, I looked at it, and we had lawyers prosecuting crimes against children, elder abuse, and domestic violence. And when the lawyer prosecuting a case against a child was in trial and another case came in, nobody really looked at it, so he had a child victim that it'd be months later where finally we could file something. It wasn't real good for victim services. So I put an umbrella, called it family violence, and cross-trained all these lawyers. They could handle crimes against children, elder abuse, and domestic violence, because if you think about it, in a household where there's domestic violence and children, it's crossing over. So we put that together, and I did a pilot program. At the time, the lead attorney was Mary Ashley. She's now my chief deputy over my Central Division, and I said, let's just see if it works. Let's see if it works. We'll work with law enforcement. And after the first year, we had a 100% conviction rate. And I said, that's it. We got to spread this across the county. So my entire office now has the umbrella of family violence. Now, since then, we've added another unit. We were seeing, and it's sad to say, more major crimes, violent crimes against our babies, our children. And working with the assessment center and Dr. Young and Dr. Sheridan Matney, we saw, wow, this is horrible. So I wanted to really train some of my top prosecutors in that family violence umbrella. And I had Gary Roth, my assistant, who you have met, create the Major Crimes Against Children unit, and that just happened about 3 months ago. So our most serious victims, our most vulnerable, I have specially trained prosecutors in it now that meet with the doctors, the pediatric, forensic pediatricians. They work hand in hand with the social workers, and it's just so much better now. We're communicating better, and because we are the voices, especially for those babies, they can't tell us what happened. They can't say what happened. So I thought we can do a better job, and I am really proud of how that is really improved what we're doing for our children, our most vulnerable victims. And you know, it's horrible what's happening, but I mean, we are the last resorts for justice for some of those victims. So I'm proud of that.
Wow, I mean, especially when you talked about the elderly abuse piece. I know that's a big piece as well for our community.
Right.
That's one of those unseen crimes people don't want to talk about.
Right.
It's happening more and more with children coming home from school
Yeah.
or not being able to find a job and moving back with their parents, and all of a sudden some things happen. You know.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, a lot of the high percentage of our elder abuse is from people that they know or family members.
Right.
It's a pretty sad situation. So again, we are there to support them. We are there to seek justice. Sometimes when nobody else cares,
Right.
we do.
Beautiful. Child abduction unit. That happens a lot in our county.
You know, it happens more than I'd like.
Yeah.
And I have a great attorney there and investigators, and they travel, not just across the country, across the world. I mean, you can imagine when you have, a lot of the times it's parents that are going through a dissolution or they've been divorced, but you have one parent or another, and that's mostly what we see. It's people that know each other in a relationship, and they take their children. I mean, if you're a father, a parent, a grandfather, I can't imagine my child being taken and not knowing where they are. Are they okay? Are they eating? Are they suffering? Are they? So we've made it a priority to not only prosecute and hold people responsible, but to go get the children, to bring them back. I mean, I don't care what time of day or night it is. We get on a plane, my investigators go, and we get the babies back to their rightly, you know, whoever the court says should have the children. So the reunification part of that is probably one of the blessings in our office that I can say honestly of what the work they do and the hours they put in, you know, flying to wherever to get those young people back. They're doing good work, really good work.
Well, how about one more department here then? How about the
Sure.
Public Integrity Unit?
Yeah.
That's a unit that I know most citizens haven't heard about.
Yeah. When I came into office, you know, there was a reputation in this county that corruption was everywhere. Because of, you know, as our economist John Husing says, we have dirt, we have land everywhere for builders and whatnot. And there was a history of bribery, corruption, etc. And I made a determination at the time. I got to create a unit. We got to take care of this. And I didn't know how big the problem was until I created the unit with one lawyer and one investigator, and we've since expanded it. As you know, we have a huge investigation regarding the colonies, and that's been public. And my goal is to get that $102 million that I believe they stole from us taxpayers that live in this county in a corrupt nature regarding the whole colony settlement and issue. But the big reason for that is we do such great work in this county. And I'm talking San Bernardino County employees. Every one of them, hard-working people, just want to do something good for their families. I wanted to change the reputation of San Bernardino County. And I think we are now. We got businesses that are willing to come in now. Before they weren't because they didn't think it was fair. But we have people that are really now investing in San Bernardino County. I know as a DA now in San Bernardino County DA that our office leads the state in many categories. We're a role model now for other county district attorneys' offices. And I think we have a good board of supervisors now recently with the elections of Mr. Lovingood, Mr. Ramos, James Ramos, that is, no relation. I wish. No, he's my good friend. And, you know, we've turned a corner. We've got political reform that was pushed and pushed through, and it's now not only a great place to raise your family and your kids and your children. I want to make it a safe place, but I think it's a good place where the business world is starting to say, hey, let's invest here. So that was the big picture for the corruption unit, and I think we're going to get there eventually.
Well, I think your department is doing an outstanding job. But what are some of the challenges in the next 2 years you think your department is going to have?
Yeah, well, one of them is, you already indicated, AB 109, realignment. We got to come up with a way. We do have to rehabilitate. We've got to figure out a way to help these folks re-enter society. What are we going to do? That's a big challenge, and that's not just the DA's office, that's the sheriff, that's probation, that's everybody in the community. So that's going to be a challenge. The other challenge is there's still going to be those people, no matter what you do, have to be housed just to protect, the citizens. And I really believe, and I've said it a year ago and I'll say it now, we may have to go to the taxpayers and build a local county prison. And I don't mean just to house people, but a prison like state prison used to have. We need to, and this is true, we need that. I need to go to you taxpayers, and what we'll do is we'll build that local prison to make sure that you people and your children and your grandchildren are safe. In that prison, we will have the programs that state prison had: mental health, education, a way to try and rehabilitate before re-entering. But I'm going to use this show, and I hope it's okay. I'm laying the foundation now. I think this is something that I'm going to need your help with in the near future.
Very powerful. Is there anything else you want to ask our community?
I would just say this. It's been an honor to serve as your district attorney for the last 11 years. I will be running again in 2014. There are things I want to finish. I've talked about them: AB 109, realignment. But as important, I want to make this a safe place for your family, my family, and I want to help kids become successful through our prevention and intervention program. So support me on that, and we will give you everything we have from San Bernardino County District Attorney's Office.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
interview. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you very much. Thank you.